It's that time of year again. Jack-o'-lanterns, ghosts, scaring the crap out of my students besides peering over their shoulders during a test and announcing, make sure you read the questions carefully. I am talking about Halloween. Halloweentown is a bit of a sacred movie in my generation, so I'm going to be very typical of my generation and love this franchise. I'm a bit surprised it came out in 1998. I thought it was older, but I guess the joke is on me because I made myself feel old. Hey, it's the month of October, I might as well go through the entire franchise. Even the entries I absolutely detest. So let's dig into the original Halloweentown and see if this still holds up. We open with a shot of the iconic pumpkin, followed by some really corny circus music because this is the 90s. I grew up in the 2000s, so I'm sure some critic down the line is going to say our music is cringe. Looking at you, transparent everything. Then again, this was a trend that started in the 90s, so if I'm going down, the 90s are too. So we meet Sophie, who you'll gradually see lose relevance as the series goes on. Her older brother Dylan is our resident smart aleck. Marnie is currently arguing with her mother over the merits of going to a costume party. You see, Gwen, Marnie's mother, hates Halloween, and will explain it to Marnie when she's older. Well, the terminology she uses is when she's taller. Watching this as an adult, I can't help but dislike Dylan. I know he's meant to be insufferable, but I feel like whenever he's on screen, that there's an army of irate 12-year-olds ready to aim their spitballs at him and pelt him until he's nothing but a mummy of spitballs. And I'm saying this as a teacher. I don't even deal with these types of people that are this insufferable in my class, and I deal with teenagers. So apparently William Piper is long dead by this point, because Disney movie, and Halloween was when Gwen and William met for reasons that become abundantly clear when a flying bus appears out of nowhere and comes out with Agatha Cromwell, who comes bearing gifts. Pentagram in a 90s Disney Channel movie. Gwen and Aggie don't have the best relationship, Gwen liking normality of the human world, while Aggie, well, she came in a flying bus. In fact, this is the crux of this movie. After the bedtime story, Gwen and Aggie argue over whether Marnie should be trained as a witch because, 13 Halloweens pass without training means that she loses her powers. And of course, many metaphors can be drawn from Gwen and Aggie squabbling, mostly the metaphor of the child of different cultures or a mixed race background. In addition, Aggie wants to deal with some dark force in Halloweentown. Marnie and Dylan sneak off after Agatha, and Dylan tries to rationalize the mysterious flying bus as a costume bus and the whole literal town of monsters as a dream. So, apparently there are Catholic monks among the citizens of Halloweentown, specifically Franciscans. Does this mean that the Franciscans baptized one of them and elevated several of them to the priesthood in order to have a Catholic diocese of Halloweentown? Oh, and Sophie is there because she also followed them on the bus. They meet Calabar, who is the mayor of the town, who knows everyone. Yay, this is not foreshadowing at all. Calabar arranges for them to have a skeletal cab driver go to Agatha's house. I must say, for 1990s technology, this is pretty good and expressive. The guy who has no flesh can apparently have great facial movements. At the Cromwell house, Marnie attempts to bewitch the lock. Yeah, Patrick open sesame joke here. Meanwhile, Sophie is able to open it by transforming it into a frog. Yeah, that's an issue with Sophie. Aggie is trying to make instant witch's brew. She does the bubble toil trouble bit. I'm a bit disappointed that the other buttons here aren't, references to Macbeth's famous monologue. There easily could have been a lizard's leg, alder's fork, blindworm's sting, owlet's wing around here in order to make this a bit more witchy, or at least a reference to Macbeth. When the kids arrive, we get a rather mundane bit where Agatha just wants to make a talisman glow. Obviously, instant isn't as good as the real deal, so time to go shopping. We also get Halloweentown's history about how mortals feared the monsters and drove them into their own dimension. During their walk through town, they come through Harriet from earlier. I didn't mention her, and she basically has changed for the worst. When Aggie goes to Calabar about this, they did not go to the Kurawasa school of twist storytelling and basically gives away about how he's basically the main conspirator. Pretty much the only conspirator in all of this. Meanwhile, we have Luke. He's a ruffian from earlier, and his whole job is to be a standard 90s delinquent bully type character. One green screen session on the broom later, Gwen arrives to be a buzzkill. But thankfully, the plot kicks in, and Gwen can't leave because the bus is a bit occupied. Not sure why you can't use that portal that the sequel established, but whatever. Luke runs into Agatha and basically tells her that his shadowy benefactor knows all about Merlin's talisman in her possession. She follows him, because of the plot. Which leads the rest of the family to investigate. Calabar appears. Even as a kid, I knew this was Calabar by the voice alone. Evil monologue later. Gwen arrives and immediately tries to kill Luke, who is saved by Disney's censors. Instead of being vanquished by her powers, she just covers him in flowers. The kids themselves are forced to retreat and make the witches brew themselves. This is super easy, barely an inconvenience, but they need to activate the talisman and get it to the pumpkin. Luke gets his small redemption. Basically, Calabar goes on about how he'll end their exile, while Luke plays decoy and only buys a few seconds at most. Marnie is struck by paralysis CGI, and she is still able to install it through the power of gravity and the plot convenience. While this freed the petrified townsfolk, Calabar goes on about how his desire for world domination will not be satiated. Then, through the power of Cromwell chanting, they beat Calabar. Luke goes back to looking ugly because Calabar's magic is gone. The end. And that was Halloweentown. Debbie Reynolds, bless her heart, she was not phoning this in and honestly felt like she was having a lot of fun on set. However, where Halloweentown doesn't really work is just how didactic it is. Gwen's distaste for magic seems very disproportionate. I get the theme of be yourself, but the extent she goes to suppress both the powers of Marnie and Sophie are absurdly disproportionate to the point that she looks pretty much abusive. During her conversation with Marnie about the whole suppressing the signs of magic from Sophie and her, Gwen's excuse is pretty much, your father was human, you'll be human too. Her sentiment against magic makes it seem like she hates it for how easy it makes life, which makes Gwen look really bad. As in, crippling your own child bad, since witch powers tend to burn out at 13 if left uncultivated. I doubt this storyline would get this treatment if modern Disney adapted this today and remade it. Do not remake this, Disney, don't. Because dealing with the sociocultural issues of being from mixed-race parents would probably be handled with much more care. Hell, the idea of immigrant parents, but a child who is raised in an American environment would probably be very easy to adapt in modern-day Disney, given that things like Amphibia exist. As much as it seems like I'm annoyed at the plot contrivances of Halloweentown, I'm really not. I think my biggest issue is with Calabar as a villain. For all the pomp he has, this movie does a poor job exactly showing that he actually has the charisma in order to, well, get everyone on his side and basically be the ruler of two worlds, probably due to the budget of this movie, because it is a made-for-TV movie. And while Halloweentown does feel a bit like Party City, I do feel like there's a certain charm to it since it does help them look and feel non-threatening. However, like I said, there are times where it does feel absolutely small, like the Calabar scenes, because we don't have the budget to justify an extended supporting cast or the time to develop this cast of evildoers, mainly because Calabar's base feels like just himself ranting into a crowd. In terms of characters, Agatha's my favorite. You can't just beat her. You really can't. My least favorite is Gwen, for reasons I already established. My second least favorite has to be Sophie, mainly because she's sort of just the tag-along kid plot device, and while she could have developed into more of a character, and she actually gets a bit more screen time, or at least a bigger role, in the next movie, she sort of just peters off, so her whole talent with magic did have this great issue. Then again, it does actually fit the theme of how magic is more don't think, feel. Marnie has preconceptions about magic. Dylan also has preconceptions about magic. Marnie has a very fantastical preconception about it. Dylan has a very cold, magic doesn't exist bit about it. And then there's Sophie, who has no preconceptions and thus does it the best. And honestly, if it wasn't for that theme being a running theme within this movie, I don't think I would have liked Sophie at all. I think she would have been just a deus ex machina. And at times she was, but at least there was a thematic purpose to it. Dylan, I kinda found him annoying, but thankfully Marnie was there to balance him out. Dylan feels like a nerd in need of a spitball to the face, like I said. Then again, that's the point, so I can't really fault them for that except doing it way too good. Meanwhile, I feel like Marnie, I'm at least happy she's a very active protagonist. She does feel like she is driving the story about being thrown into this new world. After all, she's the one who snuck out, and Dylan decided to tag along with Sophie, tagging along both of them. So I feel like Marnie is probably the protagonist we need. If you can't tell, my nostalgia filter is set on high for this movie. I love this movie. I look forward to watching it every Monstober, because of course Disney won't call it Monstober anymore because we decide to get rid of fun. Thanks, Disney Channel. Watch it, enjoy it, and I'll see you next time. This is Cyril signing off.